Audible and visible to both of you?
Yes, sir.
Ramya, hi Atif. Atif, you're there. Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So Lamia, this is your first class, I reckon, right?
Yeah.
So, welcome to Learnivio and welcome to my classes.
Thank you, sir.
Let's begin with the introduction. You should know me. I should know you. So my name is Kuswaha. I'm a faculty of biology at Learnivio. I'm pursuing a career in research, biological research. Master's in research. Okay.
So your voice is low.
Is it fine now?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me loud and clear now? Atif, can you hear me? Atif, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Am I clear? Am I loud and clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Lamia, is it fine now?
Yes, sir. No, it's fine.
Okay. So I was just introducing myself. I have finished my master's in biological research from a research institute in Mumbai. It's called TIFR, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. So tell me about yourself, what you wish to do, and you have biology. So what do you want to do with biology? How do you like biology as a subject? Just a brief introduction. You're there, Lamia?
Yes, sir. Like myself, I'm Lamia. I'm from India, but now at Bahrain. I took biocomputer.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes, so you have biology with computers, right?
Yeah.
So what do you wish to do with biology?
Like I wish to write entrance, but I don't know what will be the marks. Like according to the scores of 12th.
Okay, okay. And how do you like biology as a subject?
I like biology.
You like it? You find
Like
it?
biology and English is my favorite subject.
Oh, nice. So you find biology easy or is it boring? Lots of facts to remember?
It's easy, but some names are a little bit difficult to catch up.
Yeah, right. Correct, correct. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
Hi, Mohammed. You there? Syed Mohammed, you're there? Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, how are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Just welcoming everyone before I start. Okay, so I also have been receiving some assignments. I have Atif's assignment. Atif, you have submitted one assignment, right? Yeah. So I have been, so when you will submit assignments, I'll go through your assignments to see and figure out when you are writing down answers, like what changes or what modifications, how can you write it better? So I'll give you feedbacks regarding that. Okay. So probably sometimes in the class or even before or after the class. It's fine.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have Saifullah also joining. Saifullah, you're there? Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yes. Okay. So I also have Saifullah's assignment. So one thing, so see, because it's the first assignment, so I would like to give a very general suggestion to all of you. And to Lamia, I would just like to introduce how I conduct the classes. So basically, you must be knowing that at Learnivio, we keep the classes strength low, right? To give you a kind of personalized classroom. Concept behind that is, it should not be a monologue, right? It should not be a class like a YouTube class where a teacher is speaking and you are just listening and everything is upon you, how much you can grab out of it. It's like a book. So when you read a book versus when you learn from a teacher, there has to be a difference. Books cannot talk back to you, right? Teachers can. So if teachers start behaving like books, just giving you one-sided knowledge. It's not how we conduct classes here. So it has to be a dialogue. So you have to be equally involved in the class, discussing with me. At times I will pick you up to answer something or to discuss your viewpoints about something. And I hope you'll be fine with it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good. And we'll also be giving you assignments, which some of your batchmates, because it's your first class, I have had 2 classes before this with this batch. Assignments that you will solve and submit back, which eventually will come back to me to see how are you doing in the assignments. So basically, I'll be taking care of your overall development in the subject and how well are you being prepared for your entrances, boards, and any other examination that you are planning to give, okay, that involves biology. So one general suggestion to all of you is that when you are writing questions, see in boards, one thing that matters is your questions should be addressing the problem that has been asked. So you should not beat around the bush, try to answer what has been asked, and also try to elaborate your answer. Giving very short answers, to the point answers also sometimes, and can go against you in boards. So boards is all about how well you can explain the concept that has been asked. So I was reading Atif's assignment. You're there, Atif? It's just a suggestion to you. So when you give answers regarding for example, why there is variation in sexual reproduction, correct? You have written a beautiful answer for that. Can you hear me, Atif?
Yes.
Yeah, but you have just mentioned that both, because it receives genes from both parents, right? So when it receives genes from both parents, it still, like, how is it relevant for your variation point? So you can say, instead of just saying, you are very to the point, of course it receives genes from both the parents, but if you're writing this in board, suppose this question comes in 2 marks, for 2 marks, so you can also write down that the variation arises because the characters that the offspring inherits is a combination of genes from both the parents. So the word combination makes sense here, you understand? Because
Yes, sir.
unless and until the genes are combining together, they will not make variations. When we are talking about variations, we are talking about something which even the parents did not have. I hope it is clear to you, right?
Yes, sir.
This is what we mean by variation, that there's something that even the parents were not having and the offsprings are having, but it came from parents only. But one parent contributed something, the other parent contributed something. Remember alleles from the last class? So they contributed different alleles, and those alleles upon combination gave rise to different characteristics for the same, same set of genes. You understand?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, some of you, so who all we have here? Okay, so for Lamia, it's Lamia or it's Lamia?
Lamia.
Lamia, okay. So for Lamia, let's give a brief recap of what we have done till now.
Okay, sir.
So let me share with you the screen. If you want. Anyone would like to volunteer to give your new batchmate a brief recap of what we have done till now? So today we'll be going into the details of asexual reproduction. But before that, we have just finished certain foundations. Anyone would like to volunteer? Atif, Saifullah, Mohammed? No one would like to volunteer? Okay, so let me go through it. So Lamia, you can do one thing to begin with. First, in your copies, make a terminology section. Like you said in the beginning, the problem that you face in biology is a very genuine problem that almost everyone who studies biology faces in the beginning, okay? You said that there are certain words that are very difficult to understand and remember and learn, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir. I see.
Biology is all about words. So how we started this class was, I was telling your batchmates that we will focus on words, which we call terminologies, okay? The study of words. In biology, if you understand words, to understand at least the definition of it. So the 1 mark is assured if you understand the word, you understand the beginning of the process. Next, what is required is to understand what happens and how it happens. So in science, you all know that we do not ask the question why, because it cannot be answered. If you ask me why humans have only 2 hands, there's no reason to why we have 2 hands and why we have only 2 eyes, why not 5 eyes. But how those 2 eyes developed and what purpose this serve is what science is all about. You understand? So if you understand the word, you will understand what to some extent. Then what will left is how to go into the details of it. Is it clear, Lame?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Terminology section where you can see the screen, right, that I'm sharing. Yes.
Yeah, I can see.
You can see I have written terminology and the meaning of it. So there are many words in biology that holds same meaning wherever they come, in whatever context they come. For example, cyto is for cell, cytoplasm. The plasm word is for fluids. When the word comes cytoplasm, you know that it's the fluid of the cell, right?
Yeah.
You will see words like cytokinesis, cytosol, and many other cyto words. But wherever the word cyto comes, it means cell. Okay. So similarly, there'll be many words that we will be discussing, but leave 2-3 pages of your copy, the biology notebook, vacant in the beginning, where you will be writing these terminologies down, because they really help in your entrances to understand the question better. Okay. So we have started with the first chapter of the first unit of your 12th NCERT, which is reproduction. Okay. We started with certain concepts of reproduction. For example, what is reproduction and how will you define reproduction? So reproduction is where the parent organisms produce offsprings which are similar to the adult form of the parent. Okay, so when they are adult, they look similar to their parents. Now I use the word adult here deliberately, that why only the adult form is similar to the parent. So Atif, would you like to answer that? Why we focused on the adult form? Atif, you there? Remember I told you about the adult form is similar to the parents? Am I audible? Saifullah?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yes. So why is the adult word here? Any idea, Lamia? So if you don't remember, you can see that.
No, sir.
So have you seen that offspring? So when human babies look like humans, adult humans, right? With the same anatomy and morphology. They have 2 hands. Of course, they are small, but they look like their parents. They have a head, they have 2 hands, 2 legs, and a belly, right? But have you seen the baby of a butterfly? What is the offspring of a butterfly called, Lamia? You know about butterflies? You know caterpillars?
Yes, sir, I know.
Yes. Think of butterflies are called caterpillars. Do caterpillars look anything like butterflies?
No.
No. So that's why we know that for all type of reproductions, it's not necessary that the offsprings will look like their parents. But of course, when they reach their adult form, when they reach the form where they can reproduce, they look like their parents. So from caterpillar they become pupae, and from the pupae from that cocoon comes out the butterfly. Remember? So finally, the butterfly looks like its parent. Similarly, in case of frog also it happens. Like frogs in the beginning do not look like frog. They are called tadpoles and they look more like fish. And over time, these tadpoles, they grow limbs and then they look like a frog when they can reproduce. Okay. So we discussed the definition, the basic definition of reproduction. You can go back and read it and can reach back to me in the next class with your questions. Okay. You can ask questions in the class. After I finish, I ask if you have any questions. You can clear your doubts whenever you want, but don't keep it with you. clear it out. Then we went on to figure out reproduction as a life process. You must have read life processes in class 11th, right?
Yes, sir.
You know that reproduction is a life process. But reproduction is not a characteristic property of life. Now, why it is not a characteristic property of life? Because even organisms that do not reproduce, they live. So something is called a life process because living systems do that. Simple. So reproduction is, yes, it's a life process. But something is called a defining property of life when without it, life cannot exist. So without reproduction, the organism can live. But what cannot happen without reproduction? Lamya, what do you think cannot happen without reproduction? So if a frog cannot reproduce, the frog will live its life. But what will happen in the absence of reproduction? What is the disadvantage? Anyone?
The frog will not be able to continue its species.
Yes, it will not be able to continue its species and its offsprings. It will not produce. So when that frog will die, there will be no more generations to continue that particular species timeline. Okay. So reproduction is important for continuation of species. Okay. But it's not important for the survival of the organism. Clear? So this is where we discussed reproduction. And we started with sexual and asexual, segregating both, giving definitions for both, where in asexual, there is only one sex or one single parent involved, and there may or may not be formation of gametes. So there may or may not be gametogenesis. But in sexual reproduction, there are two sexes involved, two parents are there, and gametogenesis has to be there, and also gamete fusion has to be there. So two gametes need to fuse to give sexual reproduction. Okay. And then some detour to understand meiosis, mitosis. So this, you're there, Lamya?
Yes,
Please
sir.
write
Yeah.
this down as assignment. So this is one of the assignments that I gave. It's you have to do it. Okay. You have to go back and
Yes, sir.
read meiosis and mitosis, DNA, chromosomes, haploid, diploid. Okay.
Okay.
I think you have to understand before you come back to the next class tomorrow. Okay. Then we'll discuss about it. If you have any doubts, please discuss it with me, especially mitosis and meiosis, okay? Because that we are going to use a lot in this chapter. We went on to discuss asexual mode of reproduction, and we started with certain examples. For example, in Chlamydomonas, we have zoospores. In fungi, we have conidia, like this is penicillium, in which we have conidia. In Hydra, we have budding as an example. And in sponge, we have gemmules as an example of asexual reproductive structures. And then we also studied, which we will study in detail today, some vegetative propagation modes in plants. For example, in potato, it's called the bud. Okay, or it's also known as the. So these germinating buds, eye buds, are one form. Adventitious roots and buds are in ginger. In agave, it's bulbil. So this you can see here are small bulbils coming out of the agave. And in bryophyllum plant, these are adventitious buds coming out of the leaf. Okay, so when this leaf falls down on the ground, all these buds germinate into a new bryophyllum plant. And for water hyacinth, it's called the offset, this runner kind of thing. So it's like one plant give rise to another, and it can give rise to another. Now, in the last class, I told you that we'll be discussing certain things about water hyacinth. You know, water hyacinth, this question is very, very popular. Water hyacinth is known as Bengal terror or terror of Bengal. Can anyone knows why? Water hyacinth is known as Bengal terror. So look at the mode of propagation, vegetative propagation it has. Do you see this offset here? This thing? It's called offset. Everyone can hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah. Now this offset can very rapidly give rise to another plant, which will be in a continuum with the first plant. So these are like runners sending out projections in every direction very rapidly. Now, this was known as Bengal terror because water hyacinth was a problem in Bengal water bodies. So all the fresh water bodies, lakes, ponds that Bengal used to have. So this plant, when it got introduced, it's an aquatic plant. So half of the part, this part stays below the water. You can see these underwater roots, okay? And this stays above the water. Now they grow and cover the water body so rapidly that they almost cover the entire water body. Now, what is the disadvantage? What happens when a plant covers the entire water body? What is the problem? Why do we have to worry about it? Why it's a terror? Anyone? Any guess?
Like the plants and animals below will not be able to, the aquatic animals and plants not be able to get any oxygen.
Yes. Not only oxygen, they'll also not be getting sunlight, right? Sunlight is very important for organisms, even if they are inside the water. So they get, and third thing, they will be competing for nutrition, whatever nutrition is present in the water, correct, Atif? So oxygen, nutrition, and sunlight, all three things are compromised for organisms which live below, like which are below the level of the, which are below the surface in that pond, especially fish and other aquatic plants as well. So that's why when Bengal, this water hyacinth takes over a water body, other life forms starts to perish and die. And after some time, that whole water body becomes dead and dampening. Bodies which are dying are not being, so everything is dying and rotting. So that water body will start smelling foul. So even the water is not fit for drinking anymore. Do you understand? So it does not only affect the life in that lake, but it also affects the life outside the lake, which is dependent on the lake for water. You understand, Atif? And everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's why it's called Bengal terror. So it's known as Bengal terror because it very rapidly reproduces and covers the whole water body in which it is present. Now, there are certain things, let's go into the details of asexual reproductions now. There are certain things that you need to know. Till now, whatever we have discussed about sexual and asexual reproduction, tell me, what do you think? Which form of reproduction is better? Now, when you answer this question, you have to give me justifications for your answer. Okay, let's begin. Which form of reproduction is better? Okay, let me not ask a very broader question. Let me ask you, which form of reproduction is more complex according to you?
Sexual reproduction.
Sexual. Why sexual? Why do you think sexual is complex? Yes, Muhammad is also answering sexual. But why sexual? Sayyid Muhammad
Because
Mohyuddin.
in sexual reproduction, like more variation is produced.
That's why it's
More
complex.
genetic variation.
But that is the output of sexual reproduction. When I'm saying complex, complex is the process. Outcome is outcome, right? Outcome is offspring. You say that yes, in sexual reproduction, the offspring is different. It has genetic variation. Okay, cool. But I'm asking, when I'm asking complexity, complexity has to be in the process of reproduction. So do you think the process of sexual reproduction is more complex or the process of asexual reproduction is more complex? So this is what you have to understand, okay, to write better answers where there are no chances of getting your marks deducted. And you can also score good in entrances. So Atif is correct that sexual mode is more complex, okay? Why it is more complex? Because if you see the process, you need to have two different types of sexes, correct? Right, Atif?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so Mohammed is writing because of various steps involved like differentiation and maturation of the fertilized embryo. Again, yes, but that part is called development, Mohammed. Once fertilization has happened, everything after that is the developmental part. That's not strictly the part of reproduction. Okay, that's the developmental part of reproduction. But even before that, before fertilization happens, the process itself is complex because you need to have two different kind of sexes, which will evolve separately as two sexes. They can be present in the same body, or if not, then they will have two different bodies, male and female body, to be present. And then the gamete from one sex has to reach the gamete to the other parent or the other sex, and it has to get fertilized. It has to ensure that one gamete fertilizes the other. Then it has to ensure that that fertilized gamete finds proper way through that anatomy and goes and get implanted in the womb, where it will start developing, like Mohammed is saying, where it starts differentiating and becoming a zygote and an embryo and finally the baby, right? So you see there are many if and buts in sexual reproduction, correct? So lot of things, there are a lot of checkpoints that needs to be ticked, and there are lots of requirements that has to be done before sexual reproduction can begin. So the process is very complex, very elaborate. And this is why it is also a very slow process. Sexually reproducing organisms always produce lesser offsprings than asexually reproducing organisms, correct? They also produce less offsprings, and they also takes more time to produce offsprings, because like Muhammad rightly have pointed out, he has written that there is a period where differentiation is happening and zygote is formed, and then it starts dividing to form an embryo, and then embryo starts developing to form the baby in a sexually reproducing organism, correct? Now first let's talk about asexual. So you can write down for asexual that it is a simple, anyone is writing something to me? Yes, Memuna, how are you?
Hello, sir. Fine.
You're there? Yes, so the class has, yes, for you, so it has just started. I was just giving a background for your new batchmate who has joined today. So I'm going to start asexual reproduction in detail just now, okay? You have not missed anything. Same for Minashi.
Okay, sir.
And I was talking about your assignments. I have received Minashi, Memuna, Saifullah, and Atif's assignment. So others send your assignments. Okay, so I was reading your assignments and I was discussing what changes you can make in your answers, and I'll be giving you feedbacks. Okay, so let's first start with asexual. You have any question, anyone? Memuna, Minashi, you have joined just now. How are you both?
No, sir. No questions.
Okay. Okay, so write down for asexual reproduction. First thing, it's comparatively simple. Sexual is complex, asexual is simple. It's not very elaborate, and it's fast. It's very fast or rapid. This is why we call water hyacinth the Bengal terror, because it very rapidly grows. If water hyacinth was undergoing sexual reproduction, it would have taken a lot of time to produce offsprings, and by that time the parents would have died, right? This happens in sexual reproduction, correct? By the time the offsprings reach the age of maturity, the parents become old and then they die for every sexually reproducing organism, correct? Am I right? So there is a balance. You will not see a population boom very fast all of a sudden. So asexual reproduction is simple and rapid. And certain things that are important for asexual reproduction to happen, let's discuss this this way. Suppose there is a single unicellular organism. Okay, look here everyone, there is a single cell. Let's take an example of a bacteria. How does bacteria reproduce asexually? Tell me.
Binary fission.
Perfect. So one bacteria will just divide and become two. Okay, right from the middle. And when it's dividing, what is happening? Everything is getting segregated equally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. binary fission. So simple, like a mitotic division, cell division. The genetic material is getting duplicated, becoming double, and then getting segregated. Okay. But and also the protein, the cytoplasm also gets equally divided, and then the cells are also they almost reach the same size as the parent very quickly. Now this way, this parent cell, let me ask you a question, and these are daughter cells. Okay. Whereas in case of, let's take an example of a human. So in case of a human, it requires two, let's say, male and female, correct? And a union of both will give rise to other offsprings, which can be of any given number. So this is the parent generation. And let's say this couple here has two kids, just like a bacteria. So this is a bacterial parent, and this is a human parent. When the bacterial parent give rise to two daughter cells, look clearly, versus when a human give rise to two offsprings, what is the difference that you see? What is the first classical difference that you see? After giving rise to progenies, the parent generation is still there, right? Correct?
Yes, sir.
But here, this parent cell is no longer there. Where is it gone? Where did it go?
That's
It
divided into
got
the daughter.
divided, sir.
So it becomes the daughter cells, right?
Yes, sir.
So technically, it is just the parent cell getting divided into two, then again growing back to the same size, again dividing into two, again growing back, again dividing into two, correct?
Yes.
Right. So technically, these, for this parent generation here, humans, which are sexually reproducing, okay, and also if they are asexually reproducing like plants, let's for example, but this parent generation will have a lifespan. Do you understand what I mean by lifespan? There are two words called lifespan and life cycle. Anyone knows the difference between lifespan and life cycle? Anyone would like to answer before I move forward? What is lifespan and what is life cycle?
So lifespan is the time period with the, like how much time an organism can live.
Right.
And
what is
life cycle is the time period from the how do you say this? From the time period from the birth to the death of an organism, something like that, I think. No, that like the adult. No, I'm not sure how to say it.
Yeah. So you said life cycle is birth to death. Then what is lifespan?
No, sir. I think life cycle is from birth to like the adult form, something like that.
Life cycle is birth to adult form. Okay. And lifespan is birth to death.
Yeah, that.
Everyone agrees? Or anyone would like to add something to it? Yes. So
I would say, sir,
yes.
lifespan is a period from birth to natural death, and a life cycle, it is a biological process where a series of changes takes place.
Series of changes takes place to do what? To achieve what?
From that, an organism undergoes in the life cycle and returns to the starting state, like the natural state.
Okay. So Mohammed is also writing his answer. Lifespan, he's also saying the same thing that Mamun and Atif is saying. Lifespan is the period from birth to natural death. So we all agree at least for one thing, which is lifespan, that it is the span, it is the total span for which a life exists, right? So we all agree that lifespan is from birth to death, correct? This is clear to all of us. Good. The confusion comes in life cycle. Life cycle, according to Muhammad, he says the changes an organism goes through during its lifespan. Okay, that is quite confusing again. Anyone? Memona, what do you think? So if it is the changes that happens in an organism through its lifespan, then life cycle becomes lifespan. No? Okay, let me ask you all, which is longer? Which is longer?
Lifespan.
Of course, lifespan has to be longer, right? Because it's from birth to death. So when you die, it's done. Biology is done, right? So life cycle, clearly it is shorter than lifespan. So let me tell you, life cycle is only associated to the reproductivity, the reproductive cycle. We also can say life cycle as the other term will be reproductive cycle. Is it clear?
Yes.
It's reproductive. It's related to reproduction, which means right from lifespan starts. Let's say organisms, when does your life starts? When does a human's life start? From which point we start measuring the lifespan of human?
Birth.
From
Birth.
From birth.
perfect. So the first day the baby comes out and starts crying, and we all know that okay, there is a baby, let's celebrate. And then after 1 year, it's the first birthday, correct? Till the baby becomes old and die. That's lifespan. When does the life cycle starts for a human? This is the question.
I just guess maybe when they reach puberty or something.
No, you are reaching puberty and then life cycle is starting. No. How did that person reach puberty? So you are starting lifespan from birth, but you are starting life cycle after reaching puberty. Okay, let's say your answer is correct. So when you are starting life cycle after reaching puberty, which is the first point of starting of a life cycle of a human? When did your life cycle started, Atif? When you reached puberty? Like when did my life cycle started? When I reached puberty? Before that, it was just lifespan happening. If this is how you understand it, so you have to discuss it so that we can reach to a conclusive clarity on it.
No, sir, I'm not sure. I said it was just a guess. I don't really know.
Okay. So life cycle, as I said, it's related to reproductivity. A human's life cycle started as a sperm and an ovum. Okay. Then it fuses, it becomes zygote, so gametes, zygote, which becomes embryo. And while all the time during that 9 months of gestation period, while we are developing inside our mother's womb, that is also a part of the life cycle. Is it clear?
Yes.
And once we are born, from there lifespan starts. So the life cycle for a human is actually around 9 months. Is it clear? That whole reproductive cycle, because that cycle can be the word itself. Like I always say in biology, always focus on the word and you will get the gist of biology. The first word says span. What does span means? Extent. Span, like if you take a thread and span it all, it will have a beginning and an end, correct? It can just happen once. It's a span.
Yes, sir.
But cycle can happen multiple times. Cycle is repetitive. That's why it's called cycle. Any cycle has to happen multiple times, starting from a beginning point. So for humans, the life cycle can begin multiple times. The multiple times a human forms a sperm, then it fuses with an ovum, forms a zygote, it forms an embryo, it starts developing, a baby is born. Again, it can continue, correct?
Yes.
So you understand the difference between lifespan and life cycle?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me give you an example for Drosophila. This is Drosophila. You know what is a Drosophila, everyone? It's a fruit fly. Start remembering scientific names. Don't mug it up, just discussions on it and you will start realizing it. Drosophila, Drosophila. It's fruit fly. These are very small flies which start hovering around fruits. They like fruits a lot. So you will see very small flies, which sometimes we mistake as baby flies. We say these are baby flies, but they have either red or white eyes. They are not baby flies, they are fruit flies. Now for fruit flies, the lifespan, okay, like from the point of birth to death is approximately 3 to 4 months. Okay, clear everyone?
Yes.
But the life cycle is around 10 days, which means in 10 days, right from eggs, so the egg is laid on day 1. From that egg, larvae come out, that larvae become pupa, and from that pupa flies come out, and from 10th day onwards they can start reproducing and laying more eggs. So for humans, if you incorporate, life cycle is the point from your fusion of gametes, okay, to the point where you become sexually mature and you can also reproduce. So for humans, it's from the point of fertilization to you till you reach your puberty, like Atif was saying. You understand, Atif? Correct now?
Yes.
And then it can happen again and again. Lifespan is from birth to death. Is it clear? So you will find lifespans being, for a parrot, parrots can live very long. Some parrots can even live for around 100 and even more than 100 years. Parrots can outlive humans. Most of the parrots outlive humans, but their life cycle is smaller than humans' life cycle. Is it clear? Clear, everyone? Say yes or no? Shall we move forward?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now, what we were discussing here was the point that in a bacteria, the parent actually becomes the daughter cells. And then when they will become parent cells, they will again become the daughter cells. So there is no concept of lifespan for a bacteria, is it? Is there a concept of lifespan for a bacteria? Because technically the bacteria is never dying. Is it dying? Unless and
No.
until we kill bacteria with the help of antibiotics, of course, that is killing. Killing is not natural death. That's why I use the word natural death. You use the word natural death, right? So technically, if we see, single cell organisms are never dying naturally, right? They are just dividing and becoming daughter cells, fresh again to grow and then divide again, fresh again to grow and then divide again. But for humans, there's a concept of lifespan and life cycle. If you see here, the life cycle itself is there because there is no death. So biologically, can we say that single-celled organisms are immortal? When I make this statement, am I correct? Can I say that single-cell organisms never die? They are immortal naturally. They can live forever if they do not get killed by something. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone agrees with this, or anyone would like to discuss and challenge the notion? Everyone agrees, okay? Right. So unicellular, write down, asexually reproducing unicellular organisms, asexually reproducing unicellular organisms are biologically immortal. Are biologically immortal. When I'm saying biologically immortal, I'm not taking into consideration the death factor due to force or anything like killing thing. Okay. So if you allow them, if you continue to give them favorable conditions, they will live forever. Now, what about multicellular asexually reproducing organisms? Are they also immortal? Asexually reproducing multicellular organisms. Are multicellular organisms who reproduce asexually, are they also immortal? Let's take an example of any example from the from here. Hydra. Let's say Hydra. Hydra is a multicellular organism, and Hydra divides by budding. So is Hydra immortal? What do you think? Yes. How, Mohammed? Mohammed is just typing. Can you speak? Can we discuss things? Okay, but write first examples here. The examples which we basically know. You can write down bacteria and amoeba. It's a single cell. These two are the examples. Let's talk about multicellular organisms. Are they also immortal? Can they be immortal? So for Hydra, Mohammed said yes, Hydra can be immortal. Now I'm asking how Hydra is immortal. If it is reproducing through budding, is it immortal? Memona. If a Hydra if a Hydra is reproducing through budding, is it immortal? What do you think?
Oh, yes, I think so.
Sorry?
Yes.
Yes. How? See, if it is reproducing through budding, it is not immortal because this parent, this bud will get detached and start growing as a new individual, but this parent will grow old, right?
Yeah.
Parent can still die. It can grow old and die, right?
Yes.
So from budding, it's not immortal because the parent is still available to age and become old and die naturally. So through what ways a multicellular organism can still be immortal? So that let's discuss that now. Okay. So first, in types of asexual reproduction, write down. There are basically 5 things that we are going to discuss today. First is binary fission. You all know what is binary fission?
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone is clear about binary fission? And organisms that reproduce through binary fission are unicellular asexual organisms, right? So it's equivalent to this unicellular asexual reproducing organisms. So which means from whatever reproduces through binary fission is immortal, correct?
Yes.
Can multicellular organisms reproduce through binary fission? Is my question. Tell me. Can a multicellular organism, an organism which has more than one cell, can it reproduce through binary fission?
No,
No. Why?
because there will be unequal division.
Yes. So there can be unequal binary fission. It's not necessary that binary fission has to be equal all the time. Is it necessary? But it's not fission then, right? You understand? All the cells are not dividing then. That is the difference. But multicellular organisms do reproduce. So this part is clear. Let me go to the other part. But multicellular organisms do reproduce by breaking apart. And in case of multicellular organisms, we call that process as fragmentation. Have you read about fragmentation yet?
Yes.
Fragmentation. What is fragmentation? Anyone? Quick. What is fragmentation?
Fragments of an organism regenerate.
Fragments of an organism regenerate, right? Who gave the answer?
Me, Muhammad Saifullah.
Saifullah, yes, perfect. But how did the fragments came up in the first place? how did the fragmentation happen?
The organism is damaged.
Damaged, right? Which means, can fragmentation be voluntary? Like, can an organism at will make its fragments? What do you think?
No.
No? Yes. But we all agree to one point, that in fragmentation, there are multiple fragments of one organism. And then what happened? Each fragment develops into a new organism, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's take an example. In which organisms fragment happens? Like binary fission happens?
Hydra.
Yes. But I told you that budding happens in Hydra. What does this mean? Both happens in Hydra?
Yes.
Yes. So asexually reproducing organisms can have more than one mode of asexual reproduction. See, it's very simple. If you just understand biology, nothing is very, very difficult to understand. It's life. When we talk about life, why biology has so many exceptions is because life always finds a way. There is a quotation, a famous quote saying, life always finds a way, right? It does not strictly go by the rule. So under very, very extreme conditions, living systems tend to behave in such manners which are very astonishing and very, very interesting. You can see life finding very innovative ways to survive and to propagate. So therefore, asexually reproducing organisms have a variety of things they can do. All they need to do is one thing: make their copy. Now, to make their copy, they can either form a bud on themselves and then detach the bud and let it grow. They can either break themselves apart into different parts and let every part grow. That is also making copies. All they have to do is to make copies, correct? They can do binary fission, they can do multiple fission, they can do budding, they can do fragmentation. Do you understand? So most of the times, organisms have more than one ways of asexual reproduction. In case of Hydra, it is fragmentation as well as budding. But you should know the difference between the two. When I say that Hydra is budding, you should know what is happening now. When I say Hydra is fragmenting, you should know what is happening now. So in a fragmenting Hydra, let's make an Hydra. So let's say this is an Hydra with a hospitals, okay, attached to a substrate. In fragmentation, this Hydra will break. Let's break this Hydra into more than two parts, more than one part. So this is one part and this is the other part, okay? So it's broken from this to this point. Now each part will just grow the missing part, okay, and will become a full-fledged Hydra. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now see and tell me the biological difference between this thing and budding happening in Hydra. What is the difference? And the first question I'm going to ask you is, if Hydra reproduces through fragmentation and fragmentation only, if there is only one mode allowed, which is fragmentation, is Hydra immortal now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. See, at the level of organism, it looks exactly like a binary fission, but for a multicellular organism. Correct?
Yes.
Because here also, the parent, this is the parent. The parent is no longer present because the parent got split into two, and the daughter generations or the offsprings is the parent itself, right? Parts of the parent itself, correct?
Yes.
So interestingly, Hydra can be immortal through fragmentation. You remember, you understand?
Yes.
But Hydra is not immortal through
Budding.
budding. Do you understand the difference between the two now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now, you tell me, if Hydra was immortal through fragmentation, why there is a need to do budding at all? Just stay immortal. Why you need to do budding? This is where you understand, you are going into the depth of biology now. Tell me, why an organism needs budding when it already has fragmentation as a mode?
Because fragmentation is involuntary, the organism always has to depend on damage, whereas budding is voluntary.
Yes, so you are tapping into the right direction, correct? So let me elaborate this answer for you. You mean to say that for fragmentation to happen, there needs to be an external factor that can fragment the Hydra in the first place, correct?
Yes.
You need something to cut the Hydra. The Hydra cannot just one day wake up and say, okay, today I'm going to fragment myself. It cannot do that. Can it do that? No.
No, sir.
For fragmentation, you need an external factor. For example, you take Hydra, a lot of Hydra, put it in a mixer grinder and turn it on. You squish, you made a juice of Hydra with different tissues in different sizes. And you know, it's a classical experiment. Let me tell you about this. There's an experiment where you took Hydra, you put it in mixer, you meshed it. So you made around, like, you know, multiple thousands and thousands of small pieces of Hydra, correct? Then you again put that mesh that mixed up jelly juice of the Hydra on a nutritive medium. You will see thousands of Hydra growing. So technically you cannot kill Hydra by fragmenting it, correct? Is it correct?
Yes.
It can
Yes, sir.
only die when it is growing old and it gets eaten by something else, or it just dies because of some toxicity or some problem, some mutation or something that happens in old age, but it dies only like through certain limited ways. It cannot die if you take it and crush it and kill it and cut it into pieces. So biologically, Hydra also is immortal through the fragmentation mode, right? So write down about fragmentation. Fragmentation is also shown by another organism called Planaria. Planaria is a very interesting organism. It's a multicellular organism. We will again discuss about Planaria in the next section, and Spirogyra. These three are examples. Spirogyra. So write down for fragmentation. In fragmentation, the multicellular parent body. In fragmentation, the multicellular parent body breaks down into several pieces or fragments. Breaks down into several fragments. And then each fragment develops into a new organism. And then each fragment develops into a new organism. So every organism that's able to show fragmentation is biologically immortal, even if it is a multicellular organism. Is it clear, everyone? So if the question comes that for multicellular organisms to be biologically immortal, what should be the way of reproduction they must be showing? So fragmentation should be one way of reproduction that should be there necessarily. Is it clear? Everyone is clear on this point? So coming back to Muhammad's answer in the beginning, yes, multicellular organisms can also be immortal if they are reproducing through this mode. Okay. Now, third one is regeneration. Have you heard of this term regeneration, people? Regeneration.
Yes.
What is regeneration? Anyone? Quick. Go to the term. Whenever you are asked something what, the question for what lies in the term in biology. Okay, that's why I focus on terminologies. It says re means
Repetition.
yes, again. In simple English, it's again or repetition. Like we give re-examinations, reproduction, reprogramming, you know. And generation means generation, to generate something, right? To make anything is generation. Generate. Even the generation that we are talking about in humans, our generation, next generation means they have been remade through reproduction. That's why they are the next generation. Is it clear? Yes, say yes or no.
Yes.
So the word says to make again. So what is regeneration? Now can anyone give me the definition? So you understand, if you understand the word, you can give a definition very easily. Now tell me what is regeneration quickly.
It is a process of coming back or growing a new or a spiritual rebirth.
Going new or
A spiritual rebirth.
spiritual rebirth, you said.
Yeah, like for example, a lizard. If a lizard loses its tail,
Mhm.
then a new organism is formed, right from the tail.
From the tail.
No, I mean like from the organism whose tail is loose.
A new
lost.
tail is formed.
Yeah, yeah.
But can from the new tail, new organism be formed?
No.
If that would have happened, it would have been fragmentation. Remember?
Yes.
So very beautifully, you just, by giving the answer very beautifully, you also gave the difference between fragmentation and regeneration, right? Every fragment in fragmentation develops into a new organism, but that is not necessary and it does not happen in regeneration. So when we talk about regeneration, correctly said that it's to make again, but to make again what? It is the power. So the word you use, spiritual rebirth, I think that's not the most correct word to use, because the organism was alive even when it lost certain parts. Like when lizard use it as a defense mechanism voluntarily. So if you see a lizard and you start chasing a lizard, a wall lizard, a house lizard, common house lizard, if you start chasing a lizard to an extent where the lizard thinks that now it cannot survive, now it will be trapped, so what it will do, it will voluntarily shed off its tail, and the tail will fall off on the ground and will start like moving. So when it is falling off the ground, it is still alive, and you get distracted, or you get afraid. You look at the tail, and this gives the lizard the time to escape. You understand that?
Yes.
Yes, but the lizard is still alive, but it has lost its tail, and the tail of a lizard is very important for its movement, balancing, and a lot of other things. So it has, if it can get back that tail, it's called regeneration. Is it clear?
Yes.
So, but regeneration is not necessarily a mode of asexual reproduction.
Yes, I was coming to that. Very good. But the point here is there is a difference between regeneration and reproduction. Regeneration can or cannot be a mode of reproduction. Okay, Atif? It can or cannot be a asexual mode of reproduction. Now, how it can be and how it cannot be, we'll discuss about that. Now, regeneration, if it is happening in organisms like lizard, it's not a mode of reproduction, because the tail is not able to make a copy of the missing part, and two lizards will not be formed. Okay, it's clearly understandable. So it's not a mode of reproduction for a lizard. But let's take an example in a Planaria or a Hydra. Regeneration is shown by Hydra and Planaria both. Hydra and Planaria also shows regeneration. Now let's say Hydra or Planaria, they are very, comparatively to a lizard, they are simpler organisms, right? So a Planaria looks something like this. Something like this. Very simple an organism. Okay, it's flat. It's a flat worm. If you see it from the side, it's like a paper. It's very flat. If you cut a Planaria, if it loses something, this part can regenerate this part back, and the other part can regenerate this part back. But if you squish a planaria, like you make juice of it, like you did for Hydra, it cannot come back to life. Do you understand, Atif? So there is a
Yes, sir.
limit. Now the limit lies with biology, which is says the minimum cells required to regenerate. This is the concept that is followed in regeneration. So if I take an example of a planaria, let me go. So if this is a planaria, if I cut it from here, so this upper part, can it regenerate the lower part? Yes.
Yes, sir.
But can the lower part regenerate the upper part, the full upper part? That depends. This answer depends on this criteria. Does this smaller part has enough number of cells to regenerate the whole organism back or not? If that number of cells lies below the threshold, it may not be able to regenerate, and the organism technically has died. But if it is enough, then it will regenerate the whole organism. Do you understand the difference between regeneration and fragmentation as biological processes? They are not same.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in this case, if it is always enough and above the threshold, is it a mode of reproduction? Because is it making copies? Atif?
Yes.
Yes, it's making copies, right? Until the time any process is making successful copies of the parent, what it is a process of reproduction. Correct? So you understand why we study it under asexual reproduction, and we say that it is not a mode of asexual reproduction. So you are correct. For a lizard it is not, but for a planaria it may or may not be. For a hydra it is most of the times. Is it clear, Atif?
Yes.
Because technically for a hydra there is very or almost no difference between regeneration and fragmentation. Am I correct? Because there is no threshold required. I told you that even if you put hydra in a mixer grinder and squish it, it will produce thousands of more hydras. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So write down what is regeneration. The definition itself is different from fragmentation. Write down it is the ability. So more than a mode of reproduction in biology. And it is not used as a mode of reproduction in biology because organisms which show regeneration also shows other modes which are better for reproduction. Correct? So let's take an example of hydra. Hydra shows budding, fragmentation, and regeneration. All the three. Correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Now
sir.
this is the question for you. Tell me which out of the three you think is the best mode of reproduction for hydra that ensures continuation of species all the time.
Budding.
Budding, says Atif. Anyone else?
Fragmentation.
Saifullah says fragmentation. Maimuna?
Fragmentation.
Fragmentation. Minashi? Mazia?
Fragmentation.
Fragmentation. 4 votes to 1 for fragmentation versus budding. Lamya?
Fragmentation.
5 votes to 1. So you're down to 5 votes to 1. Who's left? Muhammad Mohyuddin. Sayyid Muhammad Mohyuddin. What should I call you? Should I call you Muhammad? Will it be fine? Yes, Muhammad. Yes, you're speaking. Very good. Shall I address you by Muhammad? I cannot hear Muhammad. Can anyone else?
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, you can address me.
Okay, okay. So what is your vote? Which is the best mode of reproduction to ensure continuation of species for hydra? Budding, fragmentation, or regeneration? We are 5 votes to 1 for
Fragmentation, sir.
we are 6 votes to 1 for fragmentation. Okay, Asif, sorry, Atif, would you like to reconsider or you will stand with budding? Atif. Atif, you're there?
Yes, sir. I stand with my opinion, buddy.
Okay. And would you like to give me a reason? Because see, you are the one giving a very, very different answer from others. So I think others, collaboratively can give me one reason. And I can understand their reason, of course, because in fragmentation, one thing which is very obvious and people always see it as a benefit is that you can fragment an organism into 1,000 parts and 1,000 new offsprings will be formed in just one generation. So the continuation of species goes like boom, from 1 to 1,000. That is possible in fragmentation. In budding, one hydra can have maximum 1 bird, 2 birds, 3 birds. It cannot have 1,000 birds on its body. But still, why do you think that budding is the most is the best way to ensure continuation of species, Atif?
Sir, because budding is voluntary, the hydra can choose to reproduce. When fragmentation and reproduction, depend on whether the hydra gets damaged or not. It's not like every day that a hydra gets to go in a mixing hydra and then get grinded. So it has to depend on the damage. So if the hydra doesn't get damaged, then fragmentation and regeneration are like pretty much useless. So yeah, budding is voluntary.
Yes, and that is correct. So 6 down to 1, and the right answer is budding. So the most, always remember to all of you, whenever we talk about continuation of species and the best way of reproduction, it should be voluntary with as minimum external factors playing a role as it can. In fragmentation, there always has to be an external factor playing a role to fragment the hydra in the first place. Now it can be other organisms that are feeding on hydra. So what happens most of the times is there are small crustaceans and fish in the pond that feeds on hydra. So what they do, they go and try to catch hydra. So they catch one of the tentacles, and the moment they are like trying to pull that hydra to eat, the hydra just gets broken and escapes. Now it can again regenerate that part. So that is the regeneration point. Sometimes while eating, they leave few fragments here and there. So they are eating a hydra, but they left one tentacle here and the other tentacle there, and they ate the body part. Now these two tentacles, because they are fragments, they can still grow back to 2 individual hydras. That is fragmentation in hydra. But budding is something that hydra, without any other factor, like without any predation, without any physical damage, without any losing of self, it can continue to reproduce. Is it clear to all of you? Say yes if you are all. So you understand budding is the most preferred way to reproduce for a hydra because it does not depend on external factors like fragmentation and regeneration.
Yes, sir.
Yes, but if I ask you to culture hydra, that suppose I tell you to culture hydra and make more hydras, then you can use fragmentation as one of the tools. You can physically break down hydra into different parts, and then you can get many hydras out of it. You do not have to wait for budding. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. So this discussion taught you that the best mode of reproduction is with minimal external factors playing a role in. So if I ask you, that's why sexual reproduction is very, very successful. Being complex, slow, elaborate, and with lots and lots of things required and lots of energy required, still sexual reproduction is the most successful mode of reproduction on the planet because it is controllable, okay, by the organism, and most importantly it produces variation, and variation give rise to different types of organisms which can adapt and live in different conditions that we will study in sexual reproduction. So let's leave it for now. But you are all fine with regeneration, right? So write down, regeneration is the ability regeneration is the ability or the power of growing back the lost part of an organism, growing back the lost part of an organism, lost body part, lost part is right now, lost body part of an organism, or in case of some simpler organisms, or in case of some simpler organisms, growing a new organism from the lost body part. It becomes something complex, right? But can someone read it for me, please? Can someone repeat what I have just dictated?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Atif.
Regeneration is an ability to grow back lost body parts of an organism, or in case of some simpler organisms, growing a new organism from the lost body part.
Yes. So does this make sense to all of you? Is this statement clear enough to all of you? So mostly is the ability to regenerate lost body parts. Can humans regenerate? Let me ask you very simply. Can we regenerate?
No, sir.
No. We can. Don't you regenerate your nail? If your nail,
Yes, sir.
someone removes your nail, you can regenerate back your nail. So regeneration happens in human, but in humans it is limited to the level of organs. It cannot even happen for organ systems. It is only limited to the level of organs. We can regenerate back our liver. You know that humans can regenerate back the liver. Someone can donate half part of his or her liver to another person, and it will regenerate back. The part that you donated can regenerate back, if the liver matches, of course. But liver can regenerate. We can only regenerate certain things in our body, but not, for example, if you lose again, in humans it is for finger. Let me make a human finger. So this is a human finger with a nail. Okay. Now here, everyone look at your finger right now. Look at your finger very closely. You will see at the very tip here, you will find that new cells, it's always little whiter, or it's new. There is a skin on the top. So nail grows this side. The most older part of the nail is here, and the most younger part is here, correct? So somewhere here beneath your nail is your nail bed. You know nail bed? Just like a river bed, there is a nail bed, the bed on which your nail is there. And nails keep regenerating and keep growing. So you keep clipping it and cutting it, and it keeps regenerating and keep growing. If someone takes away your nail, so if by accident or by anything you lose your nail, including this much part of your finger also, so if this part is cut, you will see that this part grows back. But if this gets cut, it might not grow back. Do you understand?
Yes.
If you just lose the tip of your fingers, the tip grows back if you are not losing bones. So if you're losing a bone with it, it will not grow back. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Also, wound healing is a type of repair which includes regeneration, correct?
Yes.
Mending of bones. So when bones are broken, you get it plastered. But what plaster is doing? Plaster is not healing the bone, right? And you do not take medicines to heal the bone. We just take painkillers when we get fractured to get us through the pain. But how does the bone heal? How does the bone mends? By itself, correct?
Yes.
Because bone is a tissue, and that tissue has the ability to repair itself, to regenerate to some extent. Like it can, two bone fractures, so two ends can fuse together and there will be new cells which will be regenerated from the stem cells, and they will take the place and they will mend the bones. But if you lose an arm, so if you get your arm broken from here, it will get, the fracture will heal. But if you get your arm cut from here, it will not grow back, correct? So that's the difference.
Yes.
So our regenerative capabilities are very, very limited to very certain organs to very limited extent as well. But we also shows regeneration to some extent. Now for us, that regeneration cannot be called a mode of reproduction clearly. Similarly, for many organisms like Planaria, if this minimum threshold is not met, it also cannot be called a mode of reproduction. So you can write one point here, write a star, make a star mark and write the point. Regeneration cannot be considered a true mode. Regeneration cannot be considered a true mode of reproduction. For majority of organisms that show this ability. Regeneration cannot be considered a true mode of reproduction for majority of organisms that what did I say?
That show this.
That shows this
Yeah.
ability. Okay. So more than a mode of reproduction, it's the ability to grow back lost body part. Everyone is clear?
Yes.
Yes. Now is your budding. So what do we know about budding? The fourth thing is budding. We already have discussed quite few things about budding. Let's finish it today. So budding is the process in which the individuals form buds on their main parent body, and then those buds get detached and they can become a new individual. So that is a true mode of reproduction, right? So write down. But what is the difference between budding and other modes then? In regeneration, in fragmentation, in binary fission, in multiple fission, in all of these, the developing new thing does not rely on the parent for shelter or nutrition during its initial stages, correct? But a bud is like a ectoparasite. Similarly, like humans, for humans, can I say that a human baby acts like a parasite for 9 months when it is inside the womb? Will it be correct to say that?
Yes.
Yes, we are just like a parasite feeding on our mother's nutrition. So when we are inside our mother's womb, everything we need, shelter, nutrition to survive, oxygen to do respiration, glucose, it all comes from our mother's blood. And interestingly, our blood never touches our mother's blood, but it's a very, very elaborate system we'll come to in sexual reproduction. But write down our budding. It's the process of reproducing new individuals. It's a process of reproducing new individuals by developing smaller buds on the parent's body. By developing smaller buds on the parent's body.
Sir, reproducing new individuals by?
Sorry, what, Lamya?
Reproducing new individuals by?
Reproducing new individuals by, what to say, by developing new buds on the parent's body. By developing new buds on the parent's body that derives nutrition and shelter. That derives nutrition and shelter from the parent. From the parent till it gets detached. From the parents till it gets detached. That's full stop. Till it gets detached. And you can write down one more sentence. It gets detached when it's fully grown. It gets detached when it's fully grown and capable of independent existence. It detaches when it's fully grown and is capable of independent existence. So here we are making sure, the parent is making sure that the offspring, till the time it needs something, it is with you, and when it is independent of, when it is capable of independent existence, it gets detached. Is it clear? But organisms reproducing through budding still can show mortality. Okay? They can age, they can become old, and they can die. Clear? Clear, everyone? Hydra and yeast are the most common examples for this. Okay, so we will come to the last part, which is called vegetative propagation. And vegetative propagation in itself requires a little bit detail. Today's class is for 1.5 hours only, right? Because of, you know that your classes schedules are a little rescheduled with time because of Ramzan timings. You all know, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So it's from 6:30 to 8, same time tomorrow, like Indian time, 6:30 to 8. So it's same time tomorrow, 1.5 hours. So I think it's time to finish it here. So we'll be taking vegetative propagation tomorrow, but before I go, let me prime you to this. So vegetative propagation is nothing but actually a kind of regeneration and fragmentation only, but shown by plants. A kind of, okay? Not all, but most of the vegetative propagations are this only. So vegetative propagation happens in plants. The word vegetative, the word vegetable comes from vegetative. What does the word vegetative means? Vegetative state. Okay, you figure it out. Propagation means to propagate. So here we are not worrying about, again, we are reproducing, making copies similar to the parents. That's why it's a mode of reproduction, asexual reproduction. But it's also propagation. We are propagating something from parents, we take something and we propagate it further to become a new plant. And that's how the propagation continues. That's why it's called vegetative propagation. So we'll do this in detail in the next class. Is it clear? Any doubts, people?
No, sir.
Anything? Everything is clear. Budding. So any question comes on budding, regeneration, mortality, immortality, fission, lifespan, life cycle, you will do it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, then see you tomorrow and take care. Bye, everyone. Please keep revising
Thank you, sir.
and submit your assignments. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.